everyone, and welcome to Roundtable Discussion. I'm your host, Kimberly Sanchez. Today we will be having 4 very special guests discussing the topic, Does History Repeat Itself? Our guests for today's topics include 2 sleepless, a sleeper, and a bystander. First, we will be talking about the division between the sleepers and the sleepless and how it plays a role on the topic, Does History Repeat Itself? As many of you know, the sleepless are humans who have been genetically modified to not require sleep. Latent functions of being genetically modified to not require sleep include being smarter, overall performing better than those who are not. This causes a lot of friction in society because of the struggle to maintain equality among everyone. Although the sleepless as a whole are relatively new to society, the issues that are emerging are similar to situations that we have seen occurring throughout history. So I propose the question, does history repeat itself? In Beggars in Spain, parallel real life. I would like to welcome my guests, Jolanda, Cynthia, 2 sleepless, Janet, a sleeper, and Darlene, a bystander. So let's begin with you, Jolanda. As a sleepless, what is your opinion?
Well, as a sleepless, I do believe our society does parallel events that have occurred in the past. There is apparent division between the sleepers and the sleepless. This is shown through the formation of the We Sleep movement and sanctuary. Because of our high level intelligence, we are guaranteed better grades in school, better jobs in the workforce, and being overall more successful. This makes the sleepers feel only adequate and have since distanced themselves from us. This is nothing new because humans have always caused a division between themselves.
I see. So what evidence do you have to support your claim that humans cause division amongst themselves?
Take, for example, the class system that was in place in England in the 1800s. At the most bottom levels were the working class, and at the very top were the royals. The system was based on wealth and stature, whereas in our society, it would be based on intelligence. Although they are based on different things, it is still the same concept. In addition, in every society, there's always a superior group and there is always an inferior group. Of course, for us, the sleepers would be the inferior group.
All right, now let's hear from you, Darlene. What's your point of view?
Well, as you can remember, in the book, based on how superior the race was, the sanctuary was established as a safe haven for as formerly known as the sleepless. As the book carries on, those involved in the sanctuary were considered judgmental to all of those who weren't as to their level, and all wished to seek their demise. All in which was led by the choices of Jennifer Sharifi. The sanctuary reached its own end and was forced to stand down due to the United States seeking the intentions of their weapons of biochemical warfare. The actions made by the sanctuary, as well as the result of the trial between the people and Jennifer Fatima Sharifi, created an uproar and ultimately their demise. To contrast, in reality, when the war in Iraq was developing, terrorist Saddam Hussein was known for engaging in chemical warfare and controlling almost everything in the war. But as the end to his era and his captivity shows a result that not all those in superiority can remain on top.
How about you, Janet? As a sleeper, what is your point of view?
I would have to agree with Jolanda. Take a look at our history of war and inequality. Throughout history, war has always been a recurring theme. From war for equality to the ongoing war on drugs. War will always be around despite our desire for peace. Secondly, when has there ever been a time when everyone has been considered equal to each other? Inequality has plagued our society throughout history. The sanctuary, for example, is concrete evidence that inequality still exists in our society, just as it did in the past. Jennifer Sharifi clearly wants to prove that us sleepers are not worthy of such concept by excluding us from the sanctuary. In fact, she doesn't even believe that sleepless such as herself are capable of taking the oath of solidarity. Clearly, war and inequality will be an ongoing theme in our recurring history.
Darlene, why do you think history does not repeat itself based on how judgment can change?
Within the book, the view on the sleepers and sleepless has greatly changed. Presented in the beginning, the sleepers were seen as very less educated as well as undervalued compared to the sleepless. As a result, this created resentment between the 2 races, but throughout the book, the separation between the 2 developed even more so by how the We Sleep movement was created. Ultimately, an economic divide was permitted. As Barack Obama approached his presidency, many still viewed him as a questionable candidate based on his race. but a study done by Pew Research shows that at the beginning of his campaign, the percentage of confidence that the U.S. had towards Obama was at a shocking 74%. Whereas in 1972, a study done by the General Social Survey showed that only 24% showed interest in electing a black president. These statistics illustrate that the growth of our judgment towards race as a whole has grown.
What about you, Cynthia? As a sleepless, what are your claims?
We have witnessed history repeat itself in many ways. For instance, discrimination. We have seen discrimination throughout history, whether it was between high class, middle class, low class, or African Americans and Jews. We see this happen to Leisha when her room was destroyed. Everything was ripped and shattered into pieces, all except her bed. The bed was left untouched because it was sending her an indirect message. When this occurs, Leisha says, there have always been haters, Stuart. Hate Jews, hate blacks, hate immigrants, hate Yagonists, who have more dignity than you do. I'm just the latest object of hatred. It's not new, it's not remarkable. We also see this to Jenny, had been banned from the Olympic skating, and Chris had left Stanford because they trashed his laboratory. It destroyed 2 years of his work. Kevin Baker's software was fighting a nasty advertising campaign about kids using software designed by non-human minds. They pushed us away. We also witnessed discrimination between families. We see this that Stella's parents wanted a smart genius child but ended up screaming at her daughter to sleep and emotionally abused her when she contradicted them. We also see that Leisha's mom wants nothing to do with her. From the beginning, she was against the whole idea, and once they had Leisha and Alice, Mrs. Camden had a preference between Alice and Leisha. This caused the Camden family to be dysfunctional in many ways because both children were neglected by one of the parents. All of these situations build up into more serious things, like Tony getting killed in jail, and eventually it all led to segregations between sleepers and sleepless. We didn't feel safe. We fear for our lives. That's why the sanctuary was built. It was like being in two different worlds. There were laws that were set for us. For instance, in Georgia State, it was a crime to have sex between a sleeper and a sleepless. And in Cold River, Iowa, they banned sleepless children from conventional classrooms because their rapid learning created feelings of inequality to others, interfering their education. So they gave us funds to have tutors at home. Also, Dora Clark, a sleepless in Dallas, opened a letter addressed to her, and when she opened it, a plastic explosion blew up off in her arm. It was no longer safe for us. We were targeted. We were left with no choice except the sanctuary.
Darlene, can you explain to me what you mean by history does not repeat itself based on how relationships change?
The relationship dynamic between Alice and Leisha shows growth from the beginning to the very end of the book. From when they were first born, the separation between them was established by their father, Roger Camden, praising Leisha as the superior one, whereas her mother, Elizabeth Camden, praised Alice for being normal. As well as Alice distancing herself from anything that had to do with her father showed the resentment between the two. Towards the end of the book, Alice then decides to commit an unlawful act in order to protect her sister. As a result, both sisters are finally at peace with each other and able to work out any differences between them. The sibling dynamic can be flawed for various reasons, such as resentment and jealousy towards each other. As a result, a distance from one another can be made, but with cooperation from both parties, this could not be the case. Being able to show interest in the relationship, as well as make any changes in order to make it better, can help this bond grow stronger as a whole.
Well, as you can see, the issue as to whether or not history repeats itself is a controversial one. All in all, it appears that history does in fact repeat itself. Reasons to explain this includes the uprising of a superior group of people friction between the superior group and the inferior group, and the overall impact it has on society as a whole. Everyone in a society needs to acknowledge the fact that wrongful situations that have happened could have been prevented if certain factors were implemented, such as a balanced government system or unbiased officials making correct decisions. People can try to break the status quo of repeating mistakes that have occurred in the past. However, it seems that it is inevitable in all societies. Thank you for joining us on tonight's roundtable discussion.